Hi, my name is Dilys Brooks, and currently I live in Southern California, where I live life with my husband of 18 and a half years, Delroy, with our two children, Micah and Matea. What I get to do for a living is to spend time with people as they're going through their educational experiences at Loma University. I also get to cry, pray with, laugh with, cajole, walk alongside people as they're doing life. So I have to tell you the story about how my husband and I first met. When we met, he was in high school, I was in college, and we met at choir rehearsal. Sounds cliche, I know, but that's where we met. And we became really good friends. He made me laugh a lot, and I really enjoyed being in his company. And so over time, our friendship grew, and we had a friend who said to us, "You guys are gonna date," and we were both like, "We're not gonna date. We're just really good friends." Well, on the whole, over time, we decided we would date. We dated for a little bit, we broke up, and we dated other people. And so while I was dating, going through my dating experience, I was very actively engaged and involved in going to school, going to work, and being in community. I was in a group that I sang with. I sang in the choir. I taught Bible study classes. I was engaged in ministry, very just full on, just really active. There was no weekend that I wasn't doing something and being engaged. So the time that I was single wasn't defined by my being single. I didn't go, "Hi, I'm Dilys and I'm single." That wasn't the way I introduced myself to people. I just lived my life. I did the things that I felt called to doing. I traveled extensively. I pursued the dreams that were laid on my heart. I engaged in connecting with people and learning about married people. One of the things we used to do was go by our friends who were married. We'd go by their homes and kind of sit at their feet, so to speak, and ask questions about married life. Spend some time observing what these couples were like when they weren't out on show, so to speak, but really in their own context. You'd be surprised at how much you learn by just sitting in married people's presence, especially those who've been married for quite a while and are raising kids, because you really get to see the dynamics of how they get along, how they deal with discipline, how they deal with disagreements, especially when other people are watching. I found that to be really helpful during my single period. And it was a time of growth, development, a time of fun, traveling, laughter, a time of discovering what you like and what you don't like. So that was how I spent my time being single. So I've shared what I did. Now I can talk to you about what I advise people to do. One of the things that I advise people to do is get to know who you are. If you're starting, I have really strict rules or guidelines, maybe not rules because people don't like rules. I have guidelines I like to give to people regarding when's a good time to start dating. And I got that from a pastor friend of mine, a colleague, who I heard him do a workshop once for young men and young women about dating. And I was like, oh, where was he when I was going through that whole season? And one of the things he talks about in dating is that we go from being single to being locked up in a relationship with someone. And we don't give ourselves time to really, what he calls, generalize, specialize, and individualize. So generalizing is simply saying, I want to go out on a date with a person, meeting at a specific time to do a specific thing. That's just a date. That's not you locked in with someone trying to make wedding plans. It's simply say, let me get to know you. And that gives you an opportunity to get to know that person with their friends, so you get to see how they interact with other people. And it gives you a chance to do your homework. And this applies to both guys and to girls. You shouldn't go and be involved in a monogamous relationship with someone when you don't know who they are. Dating shouldn't be the place you get to know who they are. You should start doing your homework ahead of time, finding out things, asking their friends, doing almost like a background check, so to speak, with other people. What's that kind of person like? What do they like? What don't they like? Once you have a sense of what this person is like, you can start making comparisons and saying, oh, you know what? I like guys or I like girls who are filling whatever the blank is, because that's during your generalization period. So let's say you've dated a girl, you've dated a guy who's a jock, you dated a guy who's a nerd, you dated a guy who likes to do things with his hands, you dated a guy who's outdoorsy. Now you've dated a broad spectrum of people. And so now you can go, well, you know what, I like guys who are, and you can kind of start filling in your list. And so you go from your generalization now more to your specialization. It could be, for instance, that you decide, I only want to date someone who is, finishing school. My mom, back in the day, I had friends who thought, your mom is too particular. My mom used to say to me, listen, if you're in college, he needs to be in college. Why? She says, because I'm investing in your education. I'm investing in your development. So why would you date someone who is not spending the same kind of effort to invest in themselves? I know what you're gonna say. But what if there's just not anybody like that around where I am? Does it mean I can't date someone who's not in the same place I am? No, I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just giving you the counsel that I give to others. There's wisdom in looking at the group of person you're thinking of. This is the pool from which I'm going to say yes, right? From a girl's perspective or from a guy's perspective. This is the pool that I'm going to choose from. You want to choose from a pool of people who are going in the direction you're going, have the same values, ideals, dreams, goals, beliefs, and so on and so forth. So you generalized, you tested and seen the different kinds. Now you're specializing, going, these are the types of things I'm looking for. Then you can individualize, right? Because now you can say, out of this group of people, I am willing to say yes to someone inviting me out, to inviting me not only to go out, but to be in a relationship over a period of time. I have a lot of friends who are in their 30s and they're still single. I have friends approaching their 40s and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna find anybody. And I often say, let me ask you a question. Do you know yourself? Are you 100% certain about who you are as an individual? Do you know what your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations are? Do you know what are your non-negotiables? Absolutely no, I'm not willing to compromise on that. Because it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, or 40s, if you don't know who you are, how can you be in a relationship with someone else? And if that person doesn't know who they are, how can they present something to you to make a good decision about whether or not you want to be in that relationship? So I think when I'm giving counsel to people about being in a relationship, know who you are, do your homework, ask questions. Any girl who wants to go out with a guy, she should have people in her life that he needs to talk to before he approaches her. She should say to him, go do your homework, go ask my best friend about me, go ask this person about me. Any guy who wants to, any girl who's interested in a guy, or vice versa, because I'm going to get it all confused right now. I'm just saying, if you're interested in someone, do the homework. If they don't have a community that you can ask questions about, I don't know, it's tricky. There's this question all the time about, how can I find my soulmate? Do you know if you've married to your soulmate, or have you met the one person? Here's the truth of the matter. There are probably several people you probably could say yes to. I think what this whole one thing is about, it's narrowing it down to the person who you could see yourself growing old with. Because that's what marriage is about. Marriage is about saying yes to someone that you want to grow old with. You want to have experiences with them. You know you're going to have ups and downs, highs and lows. And so as you are in this process of dating or courtship, depending on which one you're participating in, those are the kinds of questions you should be asking. Those are the kinds of answers you should be looking for. And if this person really gels, connects, clicks with you on those things, those goals, those dreams, those aspirations, those hopes, then yeah, they could be the one. saying that you're gonna meet this person, your eyes are gonna lock across the room, and somehow or the other, your soundtrack is gonna start playing, and you're gonna know this is the one. No, that's romantic, that's Hollywood, that's not true. Knowing you're the one requires you to roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, and live life. Dealing with disappointments, dealing with death, dealing with financial challenges, dealing with the illness that either one of you might have, or dealing with your extended family. And while you don't know it ahead of time, what you're going to do exactly in that moment, there are things you can find out about that person's character, about who they are from their life and their experiences that will help you to know whether or not this is the one person that you want to go through this journey with. If the person you're looking at isn't somebody that you want to see old and gray, with lumps and bumps, so you've done your homework, you're in this personal relationship. How do you know without a shadow of a doubt that this person is the one? The way that I advise people to find that out is to spend some time in prayer and reflection. And both of you should be doing that. I think for a lot of people, when you say to them, why did you say yes to your partner? Were you 100% sure? Did you have any doubts? Some of the relationships that don't last, they had some doubts and some questions. Not all, some. I mean, some dude or the lady just got up one day and said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and they walk away. But if you ask them and you talk to them, you'll hear them say, you know what, I did have some questions, but I thought that once I got married, I wouldn't have those questions anymore. And so what I strongly advise people to do is really spend some time in prayer. And you're not the only one to pray. Ask people who love you to pray. You can ask your parents to pray with you. You can ask your community, whether you have a group of sister friends or a group of brothers that you hang out with. It could be grandparents, aunts, uncles. It doesn't matter. It could be your prayer group at church. Just have people praying with you for discernment to know whether or not this individual is a person that you should say yes to their proposal. When my husband asked me to date him, the second time that we dated, I remembered asking the Lord, I said, you know, Lord, while I know that my husband promised that he would marry me, time has passed since we dated other people. Now he's approaching me again and saying, hey girl, I want to be with you. I need to know without a shadow of a doubt that this is the relationship that I should embark on, especially because the relationship before that, I didn't ask Jesus if I should have dated him or not. Yeah, that didn't end so well. I could have saved myself some heartache, and I could have saved him some heartache had I really done the same thing I did with my husband. And so I said to the Lord, here's Gideon in the Bible when he was called to go and be a judge. He said to God, I need you to prove it to me. And so the story is told in Judges of Gideon putting a fleece out and asking God, make the fleece wet and the ground dry. And when God did that, he said, okay, so now I want you to make the ground wet and the fleece dry. And so he put out the fleece. So I did the same thing. I said to the Lord, listen, if this man who's asking me to be his girlfriend this second time around, if he is to be my husband, this is what I need him to do. I need him to call me and invite me to study the Bible with him. And said, Lord, if he calls me and says, let's study the Bible together, I will know that you're saying he is to be my husband and I should be in this relationship with him. Don't you know the Joker called me and asked me to study the Bible? I was like, oh. Because see, what happens when God says yes? Then you realize, okay, so I can't just walk away anytime I feel like it, Jesus. No. I can't just like, I'm fed up, I don't want to deal with you. No. Because you know this is the person that I'm saying, yes, you should date. And so my husband and I courted. We dated for a year. And needless to say, right, towards the end of that first year of our relationship, one evening we had this blow-up argument. He went off in a tiff, And I was like, see what, Jesus, I can be miserable all by myself. I don't need to be with somebody. This is the reason why. And I gave God my whole lamenting story. And that night, I spent some time in prayer. And I learned later he was doing the same thing as well. And I was talking to God about my hurt feelings, about the disagreement that we had had. And one of the things that God really reflected to me as I thought it through was, the things that I had desired in a partner, in my future husband, God showed me, everything you asked me for, this guy has it. So really, what's the issue? This is your pride, it's your little hurt feelings, you don't want to talk about your disappointments and your disagreements. And I remembered feeling so small and recognizing that my disagreement, while it meant a lot to me, seemed petty in the grand scheme of things. Because at the end of the day, I had to talk to him about what I felt and what the argument had been about, and we had to resolve it. Because that's what grown-ups do, right? Grown-ups suck up their stuff, they sit down, and they talk it through. So I was home praying, he was home praying. I learned later on. The next morning I called him and said, we need to talk. We went out to lunch and we talked. And as a result of us having that difficult conversation, me sharing where I was coming from and him sharing where he was coming from, and both of us apologizing, he actually proposed that afternoon. And when I asked him later on, why did you propose now? Because, I didn't want this kind of proposal because I got an attitude. I wanted a proposal because he genuinely wanted to love me and be with me. And I said to him, no, why did you propose now? And he said, because I prayed and I asked the Lord. I said, if today is the day that I ask her to marry me, I need her to be wearing what she had on yesterday when I saw her. And don't you know, I was wearing what I had on the day before. And so for us, we both spent the time talking to God about asking for confirmation that the decision we were making about each other was definitely blessed by heaven. And it was and is. Now, just because it's blessed doesn't mean you don't work hard, because you do. Because love is a choice. Saying yes doesn't mean the work is over. It's actually the beginning of work, right? Because Paul tells us in Corinthians that love is patient. The only way to learn patient love is to be married to another human being that did not grow up in the house you grew up in. But that's more for another time. I've met people who've not wanted to be married. And so the question then becomes, how do you know if you have the gift of singleness? And I want to answer this question in two ways. One of the things we don't talk about, especially in the body of Christ, is what do we do with our single years? It almost seems as if what we're taught is, so you hit puberty and then you have to figure out a way not to mess up before you actually can get married. And so the focus is on how do you keep any dating relationship clean without sinning a whole lot, and then you hopefully will meet somebody so you can get married to them so that you don't sin. So you get married so you don't have to sin. Whereas Paul teaches us that the single period of our life should actually be dedicated to the work of God. Instead of focusing on when am I going to get married, how am I going to get these hormones in check, we would bring that gift of singleness to God and say to him, listen, use me, do whatever you want me to do with me, take me wherever you want me to go, send me overseas, help me to travel, whatever you want me to do, God, I am open and willing to do that particular thing. How do you know you have the gift of singleness? It's by going to God. The problem is, we don't want to ask God if the gift is ours because we don't want to hear him say yes. And can I tell you something? If you don't want to hear a no, you probably don't have the gift of singleness. So that's how you know. You take it to God. If everything in you is screaming and going, no, I want to be in a relationship with someone, then I would say, yeah, you probably aren't given that gift of singleness. Now, here's the caveat. Being in a relationship with someone is not going to solve your daddy problems or your mama problems. It's not going to solve your self-esteem issues. It's not going to cause you not to be lonely anymore. Ask married people who are married and feel lonelier, be married because that's real. It's not going to solve anything for you. Being a mother or a father is not going to take care of whatever emotional issues or needs that you have. again, you are coming to a relationship, you should come to a relationship knowing yourself and being whole. You know that Jerry Maguire movie? That scene where he says, you complete me. And she like breathes and the music comes in and it sounds so amazing and romantic and awesome. No, sweetie, can I tell you something? Bro, God completes you, not another person. And a marriage works best when there are two complete people coming together to build a foundation we're building a foundation that is God, and then you work and you grow together. So how do you know the gift of singleness? You ask. And if you don't hear, yes, you have been given the call to be single for the rest of your life, and you are going to be single, then dedicate that singles period to God. Just say to God, I want to dedicate this to you, and I want to ask you to use it to your name's honor and glory. Help me to deal with my loneliness, Lord. Help me to deal with my desires, Lord. Help me to navigate this so that your single period is not marked by your anger that everybody else is getting married and you're not, or your frustration that everybody else is getting some and you're not, and you're trying to be a good boy or girl and you're watching everybody else seem to have a good old time. No. Our single period should be the time that we're really saying to God, as far as the earth, you can send me. You want me to stay home, I'll stay home. Utilize my gifts, because Paul is right. Once you take a partner, you are no longer solely God.